Alright, everybody, we got a very interesting industry insight for you today. If you missed the news yesterday, EA came under fire for people who data mine the Star Wars Battlefront 2. With the game coming out, I believe, this week, people who had access to it through Origin were able to take a peek at how bad the microtransactions and the progression curve were for people who didn't want to spend money, and it was very damning to say the least. People found that in order to access the highest class of characters, of course, the named heroes, your Luke Skywalker, Darth Maul, Darth Vader, and so on, it would take an estimated 40 hours to unlock them without spending money. It sounds like, from what people have been describing, the game makes use of, or a lot of the purchases are being done through the in-game currency. And the only ways to get the in-game currency are to either A, spend money, B, get them from loot boxes, or C, take items that you don't want and mill them for whatever the credits may be. And so what they found was that for someone who did not want to or couldn't spend any money, it would take 40 hours per hero. And this is on top of course, spending $60 on the game to begin with. And people weren't too happy about it, to say the least. Now, a lot of people have been saying that this is a loot box issue, but I think it goes beyond that. And it has to do with the kind of pain points or frustration that developers are putting in to get people to spend money. In my recent talk on South Park Phone Destroyer, I mentioned how the game gates the player versus environment content with forced PvP battles. And that's another great example of these kinds of trouble spots. We need to come up with, I think, a universally accepted name for them. I'm just going to call them pain points for this video. But nevertheless, these pain points are inherently built into these games to get you to spend money. It's kind of like using negative reinforcement. You see this a lot in the free-to-play market, where if you're about to die or lose something, the game will pop up saying, hey, if you want to spend some money, you can keep going, or if you want to keep playing, you better buy this now. And these pain points are basically psychologically driven to get you to experience something negatively and go, well, I don't want to have to do that. Let me just spend the money and avoid it altogether. And this is kind of perverting what we've talked about before when it comes to microtransactions and DLC in terms of the money versus time value argument. A long time ago, we talked about with Team Fortress 2, Valve sat down and decided about what they want in terms of the value to put on these items, and they associate everything with either a time or money. The idea is, given enough time, you should be able to get everything that you want. But if you value your time more and just want to throw $1 or $2 here, you can do that directly. And it was one of the key pieces that helped Team Fortress 2 make that transition into free-to-play, and of course introduce the in-game store and so on. And what we've seen over the last few years, especially in the mobile and social spaces, is corrupting that value. And what they're doing is basically putting their hand down on the scale when it comes to the money side. They want you to, to the time side. They want to put so much of weight on the time side that it's not comparative to the money. And you see this in a lot of these games, especially gacha-based designs, where in order to get a character upgrade or get the material needed, it is going to take you a lot of time. We're talking weeks, if not months, of regular play. Or you spend $5 to $10 and you'll get it all right there. And this is not good design, or more specifically, this is anti-consumer. And when it comes to mobile and free-to-play games, yes, people are more willing to accept it because the rest of the game is free. But when we're talking about $60 games like Battlefront 2, Shadows of War, and I think what we're going to be hearing more about with Call of Duty, this is not a good practice. And as we said last time, when it comes to loot box design, that's definitely gambling. We don't want to get into that argument here again. But this kind of overemphasis or overflating what it means to spend time on a game, it's just not good. One of the hallmarks of great design is treating or valuing the consumer's time. If a game is supposed to take 80 hours to play, I expect to be enthralled or enjoy those 80 hours, not spend 20 hours playing, 40 hours grinding, and then 20 hours repeating the same content require me to grind more. And that's what this sounds like with Battlefront 2. Again, they're trying to make use of these pain points to force you into thinking, well, I don't want to spend 40 hours of my time not being the best character. Let me just spend the money. And when it works, it can be done again and again and again. One of the important parts about these microtransactions is the psychology of spending money. Once you've put money into these games beyond the initial purchase, and of course not counting free-to-play games, it becomes easier to do it again and again, because you now have a weighted investment in this game. So if you've played this video game, you've spent $50 to $100 on microtransactions, you're less likely to switch to another game because then you've essentially wasted those $50 to $100. And of course, the longer you play the game, the more accepting you are of these pain points, which means you're either more willing to pay to get around them, or you're just going to deal with it and just give the game more of your time. But as I was talking about on Twitter the other day, this is just not good design. And again, it gets back to this argument at hand regarding microtransactions, loot box, and gacha design. That at the end of the day, this is not providing value to the consumer. I'm sorry, for anyone watching this who wants to argue in the comments saying that loot boxes are pro-consumer, gacha empowers consumers to get what they want, it is a complete lie. And it does more harm than good towards putting a value on these games. I was talking to some people on our Discord channel, and one person was commenting saying that he's gotten used to the fact that if he wants to play like a major game like Forza or Call of Duty or anything like that, it's no longer $60. It could be $100 to $120 or plus dollars when you throw in all the microtransactions, season passes, bundles, and so on. And that is a very dangerous mindset. Because if we can't put an acceptable value on video games, it's going to make it a lot harder for developers to sell their games. Because you'll either have people who think that your game is priced too much, or people will just not even look at it unless it's free to play. As we've talked about with the issue of devaluation on the mobile side of things. But to wrap up today's industry insight, again, this may be wrapping up today's video, but we're not done talking about it. They've already confirmed that EA is tinkering or adjusting the amount of time spent needed to play. And while that is good, it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth by the fact that if nobody complained, this would have gone through perfectly. And that's not what should be happening. Developers shouldn't automatically go over the line and then wait to hear people complain before stepping back over it. They shouldn't be going through these options to begin with. And as we've talked about on our previous Game Wisdom Live show, I think this is only going to get worse before it gets better. At some point, though, the straw has to break the camel's back. I just hope it happens sooner than later. Especially when it comes to people playing these $60 games. Because again, if I'm already giving you full price, that should be enough to fund your game. And that's one of the other major arguments, and one of those pet peeves that drives me nuts, is that if you can't break even selling your game at $60 and having, hundreds of thousands or millions of copies sold, then something is wrong. Somewhere along the line, something's screwed up, and you really don't deserve to succeed if the only way you did was through these tactics. Because again, they're just anti-consumer. Now, of course, with that said, I'm sure everyone watching is going to comment below saying that they love this idea, especially my regulars. I'm sure they are getting ready to sing the praises of loot boxes below. But with that said, thank you so much for watching today's Industry Insight. If you're new, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And be sure if you have a suggestion for a future vlog topic, hopefully one that will actually make us happy, please let me know in the comments below. But Otherwise, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. If you'd like to suggest games for me to cover or topics to talk about, let me know in the comments below. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on design, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the Game Wisdom Patreon, you can find us on there on patreon.com/gwbycer. $1 will get you into our private Discord channel where we talk game topics and more. $5 will get you voting privileges for any major event, including the Saturday Night Grab Bag, Patreon-funded goals, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy more videos here on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel.